And then the system said that he expects courage from him. The Strength Enhancing Elixir is a gift from the Brave Lion King, an open beta privilege that lasts minutes. This elixir temporarily increases strength by 6. He looked at it in surprise and thought that the player gets 2 attribute points when level's up, and this elixir is equal to 3 levels in this case. If he decides to fight the goblins, he will have enough strength to defeat them, but the guardian tells him to fight this. Made him grit his teeth and think that they are just sick idiots. Do they think he will just agree to this? There are a few dozen seconds left until the end of the attack and survive if he does not do anything reckless, but suddenly a system window appeared in front of him which informed him that the Brave Lion King was requesting a deal from a mid-rank administrator. He was immediately teletransferred to another space, and Senior appeared in front of him. She said that the Brave Lion King's request had changed the conditions of the training zone. Realizing that he had made a deal, he gritted his teeth in displeasure. Among the many guardians, the Brave Lion King is notorious. He forces reckless bravery and a useless spirit of passion on players. He is a vile pervert who enjoys cruelty and the suffering of others given his personality. He wants to remove the safe zone. C said that a deal was made. The conditional safe zone will be changed in seconds. Q beckoned out to her and said that if the guardian forcibly changes the training settings, the player must be decided cordially. Are they asking him to shut up and be content with some elixir? They can't ignore the rules, especially with his life at stake. The laws can't be ignored. Right? Senna, as well as the unknown observer, were surprised, and the Brave Lion King decided to remain. Silent Angel asked, did he mention the laws? He confirmed it, and asked, could he turn a blind eye to such injustice? Her surprise was understandable. To him, the last time they learned about the laws, only years after, the training angel asked how he knew about this, to which he replied that it did not matter, players did not have to explain their game. She remained silent, and he said that they had already wasted seconds on this conversation, or, to be more precise, she had wasted his seconds in the safe zone, and should compensate for it. He was right. She said his name, then waved her hand, summoning an hourglass, and said that he was right. According to the law, the safe zone would be extended for seconds. After their conversation ended, the change in training settings would also be compensated. Blade, sharpening oil, and a rusty iron sword with an attack power of 2 to 5 units appeared in his hand. He thought that was all the compensation for the scenario change. Well, he would take what he could get. He even had to mention the laws to buy a few dozen seconds. He returned to the training area, and the system reported that the first goblin attack was over, after which they immediately got out of the bus and ran away, getting up from the floor. MC was glad that they were gone. Conversation allowed him to wait out the time until the wave ended, and he was able to survive by avoiding battles. The system reported that the Brave Lion King was deeply disappointed in him, and he insulted him in his thoughts, and as soon as his gaze fell on the mutilated corpses, nausea rose in his throat, but he immediately pulled himself together. He needs to focus on survival. Training is a whole week of hell, and if he wants to hold out, then first he needs to find food and water. The main goal is a grocery store, which is from here. He studied here for years, so he filled in the local geography perfectly, but he needs to move quickly so as not to end up in a hopeless situation again. When he went outside, he heard a man screaming nearby, calling for help, but he ran past him with the thought that there must be other survivors nearby, but he has difficulty navigating because of the fog. In fact, the bus was the only landmark, so had to avoid any confrontations. He felt calm, even though he was surrounded by corpses. He stopped by the car to take a rest, and wondered if it was because of the skill he had received. He noticed a hand in front of his foot, and realized thought he had almost stepped on a corpse, but it turned out to be a living person. A girl named Kongonwa asked him for help and tried to crawl out from under the car, and Hujin stepped back and looked at her in surprise. He saw a goblin on the other side of the car, and thought that it was strange. They should have disappeared after the first wave. Could this be some kind of mistake? The goblin grabbed the girl's leg and slashed at it with a blade, smiling evil, and she asked Hutchin for help with tears in her eyes. Looked at her in confusion, and she grabbed his boot and asked him for help again. She wants to see her mother. She started crying again, and he was surprised to think that it was a child at first. He didn't consider the situation, but she was still uninjured. Though the goblin tried to cut her leg, did she get a bonus too? and she was screaming not from pain but from mirth. Goblin was strangely focused. Is this a talent he had only heard of? Administrator appeared next. To him she said that even though it was a goblin child, even he would be difficult to defeat at level 1. He remained silent and thought that if she was telling the truth, it would be even more impressive. The girl didn't notice because she was panicking, but she had incredible tank talent. Even so, Yuhian, the king of Physis, couldn't do that at level 1. If he left her here, other goblins would come and eventually kill her. Realizing that Han needed to make a decision, he opened his inventory and took out a sword from there, thinking that he was more familiar with the training conditions than most, because he could compare the theory of virtual dungeon experience. As the administrator said, it would be difficult for a level 1 to defeat a child goblin, but that only applies to direct confrontations. If he doesn't notice him, he won't be able to respond. He just needs to aim at the center of the weak point and pierce it. Lunging forward, he pierced the goblin's neck with his sword and finished it off, and the girl looked at him in surprise. The monster's blood splashed onto his face, and the system informed him that he had gained experience for killing the goblin. He sighed heavily, mentally noting that he had done it in one hit, and then looked at the girl and told her to get up and pull herself together. If she doesn't stick around, he'll leave her behind. She immediately stood up and ran to him, and they went to the store together. When they went inside, he left her at the entrance to guard and told her that this door should not be opened, no matter what happened. And he ordered her to answer. Did she understand everything? She confirmed it nervously, and he realized that Shua is completely overcome with fear. While it would be strange not to be afraid of this hellish training, he said that no matter who or what she heard outside, she should not open the door under any circumstances. He noticed how much Shua is shaking. He understood her fear. But now was not the time. Suddenly, the system reported that the second goblin attack was approaching. The safe zones were starting to be configured. Noticing that the girl also looked up at the system window, he asked, she can see it too, right? She hesitantly confirmed it, and he decided to make sure of it. Asking what was written there, she nervously told him that the attack was about to begin. The safe zones in the school convenience store and hospital were starting to be configured. Now he realized that he was not mistaken. She was a player with extraordinary talent. Usually before the second attack, you can only see the safe zone configuration in the grocery store, but he heard that players with talent can see the safe zones in the hospital. He wonders why he can see it too, although the second notification is even more mysterious about setting up an additional safe zone. When the system notified about the start of the second goblin attack, he decided to first make sure that they were safe, just in case. He repeated to the girl that she should not open the door under any circumstances. If she is not sure of that, she can then let her sit with her back to it and not even look in that direction. The system reported that the safe zone setup was complete. The primordial fog appears. They looked out the window. The bloody streets, with fog, and goblins began to wander among it. Meanwhile, the people who did not have time to hide in a safe place were doomed to a direct confrontation with the monsters, in which they lost. Some of them reached the hour store, the safe zone. They began to knock on the doors, asking to let them inside, but since no one inside responded to this, they got angry and asked them to open the doors. Again, Yukin stood guard, while Sunhwa sat nearby and didn't look at them. Watching them, Mick frowned and realized that he still didn't feel anything, but it was very painful touch. People were panicking and asking him for help. They even tried to break down the doors, but they didn't succeed. Finally, the goblins caught up with them, and when the monster killed one of them, frightened screams were heard. Some ran and someone was killed. Since the threat was over, Hachin lowered his sword and thought that it was impossible to break into this safe zone by force. Unfortunately, it was enough to open the doors from the inside for the zone. Todi Sapir. They would also die if they did that, so they could only watch the death of others. Suna sat on the floor, with her eyes closed and her hands over her ears, trying to muffle their screams. An MC with a gloomy expression looked at drops of blood on the glass and decided to imprint it in his memory. The system that created this situation, and the guards that watch everything like a game. One day, they will pay for this. Hours after the second goblin Attack Thestry is quiet. The girl calms down and thanks Hutchin for taking her with him. She finally tells him her name and says with a smile that she is years old. She is so glad that she met him in the morning. He tells her to stop. He helped for a reason, and he can't guarantee that she will survive what is happening in the end. She could become just bait. If there was a need, she got really worried and asked him not to abandon her. Did she do something wrong? He realized that he had gone a little too far and asked her to calm down. He wanted to say that he couldn't promise to protect her until the end of the training because he wasn't sure that he could even save himself. He wouldn't drive her away unless it became a threat to his own life. She could sleep because they had to leave tomorrow. She looked at him worriedly and asked, "Is this true? Where are they going?" He remained silent and remembered the moment when the list of safe zones appeared. The second floor off the towers parking lot was chosen as the additional safe zone. He told her that they would go to Gwangwon. Wayman unrealized that she didn't see the additional safe zone. He hadn't heard of such a thing either, but he knew Thathus Tower in Gwangwaman was the key point of the entire training. Before leaving, Mek put some food and water in his backpack, put it on, and opened the door to the street, where they immediately came across a pile of corpses. Noticing that the girl was covering her mouth with her hand in shock, he asked if she was okay and shuttled him that everything was fine. He thought that this couldn't be happening. It was too horrible a sight, even for someone his age. She was trying to pretend that she was okay. As they walked down the street, he wondered if this was what a destroyed city looked like there, where only corpses everywhere. They didn't see any survivors. He looked at Sunhwa and told her to watch her step carefully. Anch looked up at him in surprise. He pointed his finger at the ground and told her to speak up if she saw anything Gileike. She pointed at the slime in front and asked, "Is this what he's talking about?" He immediately pulled out his sword and thought that he never imagined that they would find it so quickly. It's a neutral monster, so its level is not displayed. This is the safest prey. Even a child can handle it. He quickly cut the monster with his sword and received experience and 3 coins for it. He was even surprised. It was his first time using a real sword, but it seemed so familiar to him. They went further, and Sunhua noticed that the slime had disappeared, and he explained to her that it was the weakest monster. They would appear on their way, so they would stop and kill them. So Sheshuld watched her step. He was still surprised that he could wield a sword so easily. He only used it in virtual dungeons. He gripped the hilt of the sword tighter, and again felt a very familiar feeling as if he had used Itofan. Time passed. Sunhwa pointed out the slime to him, and he immediately cut it with the thought that this was already fifth. She notices monsters much better than him. The system reported that his level had increased to 2. He received 2 bonus stat points and 1 random one. His body was enveloped in a blue glow, and Sunhwa asked in surprise why his body suddenly started glowing. He told her that he had leveled up. Killing monsters raises your level, and that show you become stronger after learning about this. She said that she would also try to level up, and he, entering Thibodeau, thought that he himself was doing it for the first time, but for some reason the sword seemed very familiar to him several times. He cut down a monster, and then another one, and the system reported that his level had increased to 3. He received 2 bonus stat points, and 1 random one. He realized that he was leveling up too close, and the random stat point was coming for the second time. So Yu Hyun, the King of Fists, who was also called the one who training, mentioned something like this in his notes. Bonus points existed, but even he had trouble getting them. He received 2 points at once, although he was only level 3. He remembered about the player retest back then, and he had no talents. But now that he had returned, they were open. He was sure that they were closed at that time too. In that case, he might be an early bloomer, a player who only shows maximum growth at the beginning. That seems to be true. In fact, it's even better. This way he survived, reached level 3, and attracted the attention of several guards. If he really is an early bloomer, he will have a chance to achieve his goal after training in years. A disease cure potion will appear on the market. The price is $1,000,000,000. It will help cure his mother, so he needs to survive and start collecting money. On the way to the tower, they kept killing slimes, and his level increased to 5, and he also arrived bonus points at first. He was surprised by this, but then he discovered another important aspect of the system. After level 5, it becomes possible to form parties. He sent an invitation to Sunhwa's party with the thought that Shuwold also becomes stronger. and she accepted it with surprise. Suddenly, the system reported that an unknown observer was very interested in him, but he ignored it, and Sunhwa thanked him, saying that she would try to help him. So Heshelden abandoned her. Noticing that she was crying, he realized that she was worried about it again. Of course, he felt sorry for her, but he was already busy taking care of himself. He sighed and asked her to show it with actions, not words, and thought that even though he was growing faster, getting extra points, that same monster was waiting for them in the tower. He wouldn't be able to protect Sunhwa in a fight with him protecting someone at level. Even sounds funny. As they were heading towards the tower, Sunhwa noticed something ahead and asked, "Is that a new monster?" A level 3 White City Fox was wandering around nearby, and he thought that it looked like a neutral monster, but it had a passive ability that provoked nearby monsters to attack thee. Better quietly go around it. At that very moment, a system window appeared in front of Sunhwa, which said something about provocation, and suddenly a growl was heard from the side. A small pack of foxes surrounded Sunhwa from all sides, and they rushed to attack. Hukin had already prepared for battle, but he realized that they were aiming at Hearth Fox's bit into Sunhwa's arms and legs, and she screamed, and the MC swung his sword with the thought that she almost did not receive damage, but the monsters only became more numerous. He needed to aim for the neck and quickly Kilaverion. Lunging forward, he swung his sword several times and dealt with the monsters, after which he turned to the frightened girl and asked, "Is she injured?" After this attack, his level increased to 8, and the administrator quickly appeared next to him, and she became curious about his current level. He remained silent and thought that it seemed that administrators can watch players and remain invisible when he set his level. She didn't believe him, so he told her that she could scan it and find out. She found out that he wasn't lying, and the system reported that an unknown observer was surprised by his growth rate, and several anonymous guards were impressed. Hin himself thought it was strange because the level increase rate was really fast. He opened the status window now. Each of his stats was Ash thought the stats of a level 8 person shouldn't look like this. His growth is unusual, but it's a good opportunity. After that, he returned to Sunhwa and pointed to a large building ahead, saying that they would go there. He was going to the Dower dungeon, he would explain inside. If she didn't listen, she would die. She looked at him in shock and told her not to be afraid. She just needed to follow his commands to survive.